Hello dear crypto friends, and welcome to today's video in which we are going to talk about the fascinating correlation between the Euro USD chart and the long-term Bitcoin chart, because there seems to be a fascinating correlation. Now, we have talked in previous videos about the correlation between the dollar index and Bitcoin, right? And we saw that Bitcoin is inversely correlated to the dollar index. Now the euro is, of course, logically again inversely correlated to the dollar index, because the dollar index measures the strength of the dollar with regards to other big currencies, and the most important, the biggest one, is the euro. So of course we would expect that the euro is inversely correlated to the dollar, but I have never yet compared the Euro USD long-term chart with the Bitcoin chart, and I have loaded it already here. So with the green and red candlesticks, you see the long-term Bitcoin chart, which has this nice curved behavior in the long-term logarithmic chart, right? We know it already. We often use our regression trend channel, and in orange you see the Euro USD chart. And what a surprise, look here, they are always spiking together. Even as early as 2011, the euro spiked together with Bitcoin. Then in 2013, the same thing, or early 2014. Then this spike in late 2017, early 2018, the euro had also a spike. And now also the last time, the euro had again a spike. And every time when Bitcoin falls and goes into a bear market, right, the euro does the same thing. Euro falls, Bitcoin also falls, bear market, bear market, bear market, bear market, bear market, right? So we see there is this strong correlation. So maybe in order to understand if Bitcoin will recover, how fast Bitcoin will recover, and if it will go into a new rally, if this cycle is over or not, maybe we have to understand if the euro will recover and if the euro will actually have a low and start to rally, because it appears that if the Euro USD is spiking, then Bitcoin will also be spiking, right? So let us try to think if the Euro USD has bottomed out and if it will recover now. Now, looking at the monthly Euro USD long-term chart and loading the RSI, we can see that there seems to be some divergence going on, right? The price is making lower lows. However, the lows here in the RSI make higher lows. So this is a hidden bullish divergence, and we always like to see hidden bullish divergences because most of the time they indicate that a reversal will happen. And in this case, a hidden bullish divergence would indicate that this is the low and we are going to rally afterwards. Now, looking at the pure structure itself, it looks very familiar. I think we have seen this somewhere. Let's go into the weekly chart. Let's compare it to Bitcoin in 2014 and 2015. Now you will say, huh? What? Why 2014 when 2015? I mean, what happened back then? Let's zoom in a bit. Let us zoom in, and let us just look at this bottom structure, right? Let us look at this bottom structure. We see that bottoms are always bizarre in that there is some kind of weird support that is tested multiple times, right? And if it doesn't manage to break consistently below this support, then it starts rallying. And we can see that the euro is actually doing the same. The euro has been testing support since 2015, okay? Since 7 years now, the euro has been testing once, twice, here almost 3 times, right? Okay, Bitcoin did it more often in 2014, 2015, but what is remarkable is this structure here, this one, right? And this one, this kind of like double peak structure, right? Double peak structure. Here we also have this testing and then rebounding, testing and rebounding, right? So if this was to continue, if this was to be in line with what Bitcoin did back then, we would say that, okay, we will now get another back test, rebound, and then start going upwards, okay? So what would happen if the Euro USD now rebounds and starts going upwards? I mean, this structure looks similar. There's also this bullish divergence as we saw in the long-term RSI. So what would happen now if the Euro USD suddenly started reversing as Bitcoin did back in 2015? What that would mean is that if we load the chart from 2015 onwards, well, we can imagine what would happen, right? We get a rebound here. The euro is testing the support multiple times. We said we get a back test, rebound, and then the euro USD goes higher. Well, we can imagine that Bitcoin would do something similar. Rebound, back test, and off to new highs, because we can see that while the euro USD stays flat or goes sideways since 2015, Bitcoin is of course an asset that sees large scale adoption and is kind of fundamentally different from a fiat currency, right? Bitcoin has this underlying dynamic where it's being adopted, used by more people. It is also a decentralized network, which of course the euro is not. The euro is issued by a central bank, whereas Bitcoin, as we know, is a decentralized ledger. And therefore the price dynamic of Bitcoin is of course different long-term than of the euro. But what we can see is that every time when the euro has a rally, Bitcoin has also a rally. So here and here, these were the last big times where we had massive rallies in the euro and Bitcoin. And if the euro was now to recover, we can also say that Bitcoin will likely go to new highs. So the euro is pointing to a reversal, and that means we could indeed also see a continuation of the Bitcoin bull market. Now let us look at the Bitcoin chart and try to understand what is happening right now. We know that the RSI is super low. We are at lows that we have seen last time in March 2020. Also, the stochastic RSI is oversold on many time scales. We are oversold in the weekly. We are oversold in the 3-day chart. We are oversold even in the monthly chart. The monthly is like on super oversold levels that we have seen the last times in the 2018 bear market and in the 2014-15 bear market. So this is insanely oversold, and fascinatingly we haven't dropped even so much, because if you compare it with the last times where the stochastic RSI was so low, Bitcoin was actually already down over 80%. Like it was down 80% in 2014-15, it was down around 80% in 2018, and now we are at super oversold levels. And if we just look at a time frame here, this was shorter than the first one, right? We can see that this stochastic RSI dip was already shorter than the first one. So if we say that this is already again a dip like this one, we would already start going up quite soon, right? Looking at the Bollinger Band, the monthly Bollinger Band is quite interesting, because every time the monthly Bollinger Band was super narrow, what happened every time when it was super narrow? Here and here. What happened? That is right, friends. It always broke to the upside. Now, of course, you might argue, sure, we don't have many data points yet, right? We only have 2 data points, but this is quite the compelling evidence that every time when Bitcoin goes sideways for a longer period of time and the monthly Bollinger Bands are converging and getting very narrow, like here, they are getting narrow, well, the probability for a break to the upside is always higher than a break to the downside. Why? Because it's just a matter of time until the scarcity kicks in, and the next Bitcoin halving, we should not forget, friends, it's not extremely far away anymore. We are now at the halfway point to the next Bitcoin halving, which will take place in about 2 years. So at some point, Bitcoin's scarcity will kick in again, and there will be more talk about the halvings, because the halving event is now already a known event, and many people actually are already anticipate that Bitcoin will be rising, so they already start buying earlier. So this monthly chart, I would say, right, in combination with the fact that the euro USD is quite likely seeing a bottom, in combination with the fact that the dollar index, which I have also loaded now here, is super overextended. I mean, just look at this monthly chart, and that the monthly RSI is at super high values, like over 70. These are values that it sees like once every 10 years on average. So taking these facts together, I think the chances are pretty good that we are going to see a continuation of this Bitcoin bull run, and that this bear market or longer correction is coming to a close. And also look at the dollar index monthly candle. If this candle closes in this area, let's say at 103 point something, then this is a shooting star candle, and shooting star candles are very often reversal candles. So I think a correction is quite likely. And as I said a few times, when this correction happens, this will of course coincide with the Euro USD starting to shoot upwards. Then Bitcoin will also start to shoot upwards. And looking at the altcoin market cap, we can see interestingly that the RSI, the weekly RSI of the total three, these are all altcoins without Ethereum and Bitcoin, is actually the lowest it has ever been, or let's say it's on par with the low in December 2018. So we are now seeing levels of the last bear market in December 2018. Just think about it. This was when Bitcoin was down at $3,000. So the altcoins are so oversold already as back when Bitcoin was at $3,000. So the altcoins are seeing a brutal bear market kind of behavior, which has lasted since the peak was in February 21. So we are like almost 1.5 years in this bear market, and the RSI has really come down to the lows which it had in December 2018. And last time it didn't take so long from the top of the RSI to the low, almost 1 year. So now it took longer, which kind of speaks for a lengthening cycle theory, right? And also now that I look at it, look at the bottom structure here. You see this bottom structure? That looks oddly familiar. It looks like the bottom structure of Bitcoin in 2014 and 2015. So even the altcoins made a very similar bottom structure in 2019, right? It's crazy, the similarity. You have these two peaks here. You have these two peaks, and you have this twice testing of this support level, which you also had in Bitcoin. So this looks very similar, and of course in turn we said before it looks very similar to the Euro USD chart. So the probability, in my opinion, that the Euro USD is rebounding now will go higher, and therefore consequently Bitcoin will also start going higher, is in my opinion higher than the alternative that the dollar index that we see here will just continue pumping without a correction, right? In my opinion, as we have seen from the Euro USD chart, for me the probability is higher that we are now indeed seeing with this first weekly candle dump the start of a bigger correction instead of a continued rally. And that would be all we need, a correction that lasts for say 8 to 12 months and brings us down here to this area, to the 0.5 Fibonacci level until say early 2023. This would be all we need for a Bitcoin pump and for the nice continuation of the wonderful Bitcoin rally, which we are of course all waiting for, because we have said that this could be just a giant stretched out bull market that has been stretched out so much that we don't even recognize it anymore as a continuous bull market, because we do see that the cycles have been getting consistently longer, right? We look at the first cycle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a nice 5-wave structure, right? We look at the second cycle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a nice 5-wave structure. The third cycle doesn't have such a very profound 5-wave structure, but we still can find multiple waves that could somehow be interpreted as a 5-wave structure. And it could now be that this has been just stretched out so more, because we see that the third cycle is already a lot longer than the first cycle. So it could just be that this is just one cycle that is so long that we don't realize it's actually one continuous cycle, and that the fifth wave will come and bring us to values of over $100,000, and that this correction was not a bear market but just a prolonged wave 4 correction in a bigger move. But because the cycles have been stretched out so long, we don't realize it anymore. So that is my theory. I think the Euro USD is bottoming out. We'll see a strong reversal, and consequently Bitcoin will also start pushing to new higher prices. And how high could it possibly go? Well, I don't think it will go as high as 250,000, maybe 150,000, and with a lot of luck 200,000. But let's stay more conservative and say maybe 150,000. So that is my current picture. I'm still bullish. Everyone is bearish now and talking about bear market. So that of course makes me bullish, because almost everyone is bearish, and that should make you bullish, because we should think the opposite of what most people are thinking. If we want to be successful in this market, it's always good to do the opposite of what most people are doing. At least from my experience, that is what I found out. Maybe you have a different experience, but I think it's always good to be contrarian to most people, right? Because when euphoria is very high, here euphoria was very high, here I sold all my coins, I was getting already very bearish, and I was thinking, okay, we are entering a new bear market. So I hope you found this video interesting. If you did, please leave a like and maybe even subscribe to this channel. I will do daily update videos about the crypto markets, about the correlation between Bitcoin and different asset classes, because it's always important to look at the correlation between Bitcoin, currencies, dollar index, the stock market, and so on and so forth. So then, friends, have a nice day, and then see you in the next update video tomorrow. Bye!